Yeah, there's always this weird moment where I'm like, when do I go into presenter mode? And it's now.
Should we... 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 / the finale of Plaque Stage Pass. I hope you enjoyed all 6 episodes of Plaque to the Future, and this is your final instalment of the interview series as well. I'm joined by 2 wondrous guests who, by this point, I think we all know that I'm not good at introducing people, so I'll just introduce myself because I think I can just about manage that. I'm Imogen. I wrote Plaque to the Future, and I'm co-hosting this with Ash, who I reckon is actually here.
I think I'm this. I think you were right the first time. Yeah. I'm Ash. Other way. To the left. Yeah. There you go. Cover all directions.
Yeah.
I'm Ash. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a freelancer in theatre, and for this series, I am the voice of Noor Inayat Khan.
Fabulous.
Shrabani, you'll go.
Oh my God, I'm actually above.
Oh, sorry.
It's a line on top.
Honestly.
Yes, so, hi everybody, I'm Shrabani, and I'm a writer. I am a journalist as well. My books are all non-fiction. They have to do with sort of forgotten events of history, and there's always an Indian angle because I come from India. I lived half my life in India and the rest in Britain, so I like to combine these stories because there's so much history to share. So they are biographies or just two-handers, and well, here I am with Noor's story today.
Amazing. I'm so excited to have a chat with you guys. I don't mind who kicks off the questions, Ash. As you're my sort of youth guest,
Let's do
I think
that.
maybe it could be you.
It could be. So Shrabani, if it's cool, basically my first question. So we know that Noor had quite like a nomadic upbringing. Could you tell us a little bit about her childhood and how she was brought up as a pacifist?
Right. So yes, her background is really exotic because Noor is born in Moscow to an Indian father and an American mother. And then the family moved. Her father is a Sufi. Sufism is a branch of Islam, which, they believe in music and meditation. It's a sort of very liberal form of Islam. And so it's what he does. He lectures and he's a musician too. So then he's in Moscow for a concert, and Noor is born there. But then this is 1914, and there is trouble breaking out in Moscow, a lot of political problems, and the family then moved to London. So they moved to London near Gordon Square, live in Gordon Square, and they lived there for 6 years through the First World War. And then they moved to Paris. So Noor in London, Noor has 3 more siblings. So she is the eldest of 4 and she mothers all of them. And then when they moved to Paris, she is really grown up in Paris. So this is a house they live in on the suburbs of Paris. The house is called Fazl Manzil, which means house of blessing. It's a very beautiful house. I've been there. And this house becomes the Sufi center. So it is a house of music and meditation where a candle is lit to every religion every night by her father. And this is where her broadness of vision comes in. She believes in universal religions. She doesn't believe in borders. She believes in peace, harmony, and all the good things. So this is how she grows up.
And what would life have been like for a woman of Indian heritage living in Western Europe at that point in time?
Well, they're in Paris, so you can imagine Paris between the wars was a vibrant place. It was the magnet for poets, artists, musicians, everyone, artists, Picasso, everyone is flocking to Paris. So in the artistic frame, they fit in. And it's quite interesting that as far as being Indians, of course, I think Paris is open to everybody at this time. So though they stand out, they might have been just seen as exotic, in that sense. But they are being welcomed into Parisian society. And Noor goes to music school. There were other Indians, eminent Indians as well. So I found it really interesting that Ravi Shankar, most people know the sitar player Ravi Shankar, they know his daughter Anushka Shankar, and his elder brother Uday Shankar, he was a dancer, and he started his dance school of modern dance in Paris, and he had Anna Pavlova dancing with him. So he was very, very, he was like the toast of the Parisian circles. And Ravi Shankar himself performed as an 11-year-old on stage. So this is 1930s, early Parisian life. So I think the family sort of, it was within their framework of bohemian, artistic, everything. So I think they fit in quite well. They would have been part of the exotic Indians there. And also, of course, there were a lot of Black people from the African colonies. There would have been Armenians. So there is a mix of people, ethnic mix in Paris at this time.
They really were living La Vie Bohème. That's great. I love that for them. As we know, women weren't initially permitted to work as undercover operatives for British Armed Forces. Could you give us a bit of wider context surrounding women's involvement in World War II and how the decision was finally made for women to be allowed in secret operations?
Well, it came out of necessity, first of all, because women are not allowed in combat roles. So they were not allowed in the front line in the armed forces. It was completely unheard of for them to go there, but they needed them. So they thought that the place they could use women were working in the factories and things, but women could be used in the Secret Service, because this is where, you can send in an undercover agent. She will look like the housewife who's going shopping with a basket, in the cycle in a rural village. Perfect place to hide. Nobody will suspect that under the baguettes, you've got all the, you've got documents under there, or you've got a wailing child, and actually the diaper might be stuffed with something. So it was very easy. It's like, it's a perfect choice, women, because no one's going to suspect them, should be sent in as secret agents. So there is this Special Operations Executive. It's a new organization, part of British intelligence, but with the sole aim of going into the occupied territories and helping the resistance. So it's a very different type of secret service. It's quite clandestine, and they do things like they sabotage the railway lines, they will blow up factories, so basically stop the German advance. And the way they feel that they can recruit women is as couriers, but Noor is sent. She is the first woman radio operator. And this, we'll go into it in more detail later, but this is very crucial. This is the very first time that women are trained as radio operators. And this is because it is the most dangerous area in the field. Also, men were dropping like flies. The life expectancy of a radio operator in France was 6 weeks. So they were losing them. So there is this desperation, and they start training the first batch of women, and they think we're going to send them in. And Noor is the first woman to be sent in.
The next question I was kind of going to ask about her experience in training, but actually just before that, I wanted to ask about what pushed her to back into London and decide to sort of take part in the war, because obviously the picture you've painted of her childhood is sort of completely separate from the world of war and conflict.
Exactly. So Noor and her brother, so there were 4 siblings at this time, as I said. Her father had died, and Noor is there, her mother and the 4 of them. She's closest to her younger brother, whose name is Vilayat. And brother and sister, they sit down, they're young adults at this time. They sit down in this beautiful room. It's called the Oriental Room. And you can look out over the lights of Paris, and they know that, the German army is outside Paris. It's going to enter, it's going to occupy Paris. And they feel, brother and sister both feel, that we can't stand by and watch. We've got to do something. It's not right to stand by and watch. So they feel that, they have a commitment. And Vilayat, because they were all born in England, Vilayat says, we'll go to England, we'll sign up for the war, and we'll volunteer. So not only, he wants to be proactive, and Noor, agrees immediately. So they join all the refugees who are all fleeing Paris. You must have seen this in so many of these war films. These lines of people on the road, they're just pushing handcarts. The cars have run out of petrol, and the German Stukas are bombing them as they go. And as they are being bombed, as they go, Vilayat says, I'm going to join the Air Force. I'm going to sign up for the RAF. He's all charged up. And Noor, when they reach, says, follows her brother and says, well, I'll sign up for the women's unit. And she signs up for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And suddenly, from this very, protected, refined, genteel life that she was living as a Sufi in this grand house, she is now a uniform and a number. And actually, she loves it. Suddenly, there is also a sense of liberation, as many women felt during the war. They were going out, they were working in the factories, they were doing something. And she had been brought up in a very male environment. There were, father, uncles. It was quite a traditional Indian family. And suddenly, she's out there. She's going to do something on her own. And she's really charged up. She then joins the WAF. She's trained as a radio operator. And she is spotted by the SOE. She's very good at her MOS. I've seen the reports. She practices diligently. All her reports are marked VG, very good. So she's learning fast on the job. And then she is spotted by this secret organization I talked about, the SOE. And they notice they are looking out for people with language skills. And Noor is fluent in French. She speaks French like a Parisian. She knows the streets of Paris inside out. She's grown up there. So she is perfect. Plus, she's a trained radio operator. The two things are what they are looking for. So, Noor is recruited. They tell her that you will be sent as a secret agent to France. You will not be in uniform, so no protection. If you are caught, you will be shot, because that's what happens to spies. And will you take the job? And she says, yes, straight away. So that's Noor. And it's not a knee-jerk reaction. She wants to do her bit. She is determined to fight back. And that's it. That's the start of her second phase, her life in secret, literally.
Yeah. And obviously in the Plaque to the Future episode, we kind of focus on the fact that Noor isn't particularly a born spy for many reasons, and her experience sort of training and sort of getting her head around keeping secrets and lying was quite rocky. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course, because you can imagine, as we've seen from her genteel background, she's a musician. She plays the harp, she plays the Indian instrument, the veena. She writes children's stories. That's what she does. And she lives in this dream world of fairies and, also heroic women who she loves writing about, Joan of Arc. And there is a strain, sort of strain running through where she likes these women who've made sacrifices, Rani of Jhansi, Joan of Arc, etc. And she is then suddenly in this clandestine place where she has a false passport. She's got to tell lies. She's got to, deceive. Also, she's a pacifist. She's given arms training. So she hates the arms training. She's really terrified of it. And we see these reports. But she keeps practicing. She knows she's got to do the job. So she's pragmatic in that sense. She's going to do it. She's a very fast runner. So that works for her. She's very good at the radio. That works for her. And somewhere, despite this dreaminess and, everything, her character, her gentle character, they just thought, how is she going to take on the Gestapo? Somebody like this, frail, delicate. There was a steely side to Noor, which people, her seniors recognized. They knew that she is somebody who won't let the team down. She is loyal to the core and she's brave. She has a lot of inner courage and inner strength. And I think that is what they recognized. And she was sent, false passport, few francs, total different identity, codename Madeline. She's flown to Paris and dropped their first woman radio operator. The Germans think they have to look for a man. They have no idea that a woman has entered the field.
That's amazing. I love that about her being really brave and having all that inner strength and inner courage, despite the fact her background is, like you said, she's a musician. She writes kids' books. Was that similar to other women working for the SOE? Did they all have sort of different backgrounds? They did.
There's such a variety. The women, I just talk about the ones who were sent to France because it's like Violette Sabo, who also got the George Cross. She, her story is so well known. She she lived in Brixton. Her mother was French. She lived in Brixton, spoke fluent French, worked in a department store, lingerie department. That was her life before that. Then she got married, but she wanted to do her bit as well. There was Christine Skarbek. She was Polish. She was the daughter of a count, somebody who went skiing, who had, lovers. She came in. She wanted to do her bit. And there were also on the other side, there was this André Borel, who was also killed. And she was working class, born outside Paris, very working class family, worked in a baker's shop, and was really wanted to be part of the resistance, comes to London and is recruited. So it's such a variety of different women. The one thing they have in common is they speak fluent French, of course, that there is some French connection. Parent is French, or they've been brought up in France like Noor, so they can mix. They won't stand out. They will speak and blend with the the French people. And but Noor, just to come back, when we say Noor is this gentle person, there is also the steely side to her, which also comes from her father's teachings. She is a descendant of Tipu Sultan, who was the ruler of southern India. He was called the Tiger of Mysore. He was actually killed by the English in battle, and all his fabulous treasures were taken. They are there in the V&A now. His tiger, Tipu's tiger, is one of the center points of the V&A. So her father would tell them, all of them, that you have the blood of Tipu Sultan in your veins. And Tipu was known as this warrior. So I think there is that side to them as well, that, they felt the sense of bravery, that we have a legacy to live up to. And I think some of that was passed down to Noor. When she's captured, she fights. They describe her as fighting like a tigress. So, suddenly we see a different Noor. Yeah. She transforms.
And that obviously, as is really obvious, that experience of being planted in France is fraught with danger. And not long after she's planted, I think several of her counterparts are captured, and she ends up having to sort of take on even more work. What would that have looked like, that sort of day-to-day, the danger she would have faced, the work that she would have been doing? What would that have looked like?
Absolutely terrifying is what it would have been, because within a week her circuit is blown. So there's Paris is full of informers. The Gestapo are just, taking informants, coming in, paying, giving them some money, and they will give any name you want. So there's been a leak in the system, and her, they've informed about it. Her circuit is blown. Her chief is, all of them are arrested, basically. Noor does, so they've been trained for this. When your circuit is blown, you go into hiding. And that's what Noor does. So she follows her training to the last detail. She goes into hiding, and London tells her to come back because they say it's very dangerous. We'll organize a flight, we'll get you back. But Noor says no. She says she's the only link left between Paris and London, and it's crucial. So she's going to stay on and rebuild the circuit. I mean, it is amazing bravery. And so she now takes on the role of the courier, 6 radio operators, all by herself. And she establishes contacts with the local resistance and tries to build the circuit. She supplies arms to the, through messages that she sends to London. She pinpoints places where they can have arms drops. She supplies arms to the resistance, gives them money, organizes flights back for agents, injured RAF men, doing crucial work. And where the radio operator, her male colleagues, lasted 6 weeks, Noor Inayat Khan, this gentle writer and musician, she lasts 3 months. She would have returned if she hadn't been betrayed.
Yeah, she obviously lasted a lot longer than her counterparts, lasting those 3 months. And she managed to evade capture several times before she was finally taken to, is it Dachau? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, through various prisons before that.
Yeah.
She makes escape attempts. She's first kept in Paris, then another prison called Pforzheim, which is in the Black Forest in Germany. And there she is kept for 10 months, shackled, so her arms are shackled, her feet are shackled, and there's a chain passing from her feet to her arms. So she can't feed, clean herself, can't do anything. She has to hobble. And she's kept in isolation. She's beaten, she's starved, but she reveals nothing. For 10 months this goes on. And yet Noor's spirit is such, I mean, I can't go into all the detail, but she keeps her spirit up. She manages to establish contact with other prisoners. It is totally amazing. And she scratches, and Imogen, this will be of real interest to you, because she scratches her address on a bowl. And what does she write? 4 Taverton Street. And
Wow.
says, this is where we'll meet when the war is over. And that's how they discover what happened to Noor, actually. Because the person who receives this, she comes looking for her after the war. It's something, absolutely fantastic. She comes looking for her in 4 Taverton Street, which is where the blue plaque is. So it gives me goosebumps when I think about it.
Yeah, I think with Noor, it feels like there could have been like loads of sequels to her episode. And yeah, obviously you mentioned that the sort of series of events that led to her being captured and the betrayal. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's very exciting. Well, not exciting, but it's very intriguing. And
it's also, it's such a typical story, isn't it? It's a love triangle. I mean, it's very French as well in that sense, but it's also so humane. You see this all the time. So there is, she's betrayed by the sister of a colleague of hers, another agent. And the sister, Renee, is jealous of Noor because Noor is so beautiful, Noor is so good at her work, everybody is in love with Noor. So Renee is in love with another agent called Antelme. Antelme is in love with Noor, and Renee is jealous. So she goes to the Gestapo headquarters and she meets them, and they have been looking for her for 3 months. They have this whole Operation Diner to find Noor because they can hear her transmissions. And initially they didn't know they were looking for a man, but now they know they're looking for a woman. And they've even got a physical description, but they don't know where she lives. She keeps changing her hair. She keeps moving from place to place. She's on the move. She's just outwitting the Gestapo all the time. And she goes up to them and she gives the address of Noor's flat. So they enter her apartment. And when she comes back, she is, there's this man, Pierre, waiting for her. But she attacks him. she draws blood. She's not going down quietly. He can't take her alone. This, 5'2" frail woman, he can't take. He has to ask for more reinforcements. So they come and they take her together. They bundle her in the car, take her to the the Gestapo HQ, and they leave her as a prisoner in the attic. But again, she makes 2 escape attempts. So she never gives up. They ask her to sign a declaration saying, you will not escape. And she said, no, I'm not going to sign it. And she will, it's my duty to, try to escape. And she keeps making these really dangerous, daring escapes attempts. Sadly, they don't work. They do get caught. So unfortunately, she is then considered too hot to handle. And the chief calls up Berlin and says, take her away. So she's sent to Pforzheim. And after 10 months, she is sent to Dachau, concentration camp, where, as we know, she's singled out for further torture. She's labeled a highly dangerous prisoner. She's, dark skinned. It would be a combination of all these factors that she is chosen to be tortured. And then finally, this sadist of an officer, he puts his gun to the head, shoots her point blank. But Noor, being Noor, goes down screaming, Liberté. So he can't defeat her in the end. It's she who wins. So that's the ending in Dachau. And then there were 3 other agents with her. One of them was Yolande Beekman, Madeleine Demermont. So anyway, so they're all then their bodies are thrown into the crematoriums. And, eyewitnesses saw in the middle of night, early morning, they can see the smoke coming out of the chimneys. And then the ashes just scattered, just outside. And, of course, I've been to Dachau twice, and it's now a flower garden with a small plaque saying these are the graves of thousands, hundreds of thousands, unknown. But it's a flower garden now. And, it is a place of, that everybody needs to visit. It's very sobering, and to see what human beings can do, what we are capable of. Scary.
You mentioned what she scratched on the bowl for Taverton Street. Could you tell me a little bit about the context of what that message meant?
Well, that was her, she started, so these are these knitting needles they were given, and she started using this knitting needle to scratch on the food bowl. And the food bowls would go, and then it would take several days before somebody noticed. Suddenly she saw a message, So she's the first to send a message saying, I'm in room whatever, I'm Noor. Whatever. No, I'm Madeline here. And then she got a reply back. So many days. This goes on for months because, the balls go to other places. Somebody notices, doesn't notice, but somehow the balls come back and she sees, we are a friend. You have a friend in so-and-so. And this conversation starts. And then she says, and she draws things like, Vive la France, Vive la, Britain, we will celebrate after the war, things like that. She's trying to keep their spirits up, the other prisoners, while she herself is being battered like this. And she's kept in isolation, so she can't meet anybody. Then I think this last one is when her last message she scratches, even after Taverton Street, is I'm leaving. And that is when they take her to Dachau. So she manages to scratch that, and they know that she's gone. Of course, they don't see her and hear her cry. So that night she's taken to Dachau on the 12th of September, 1944. And it's really sad because it's just a few months before Dachau was liberated. But there we are.
I didn't realize, obviously, because the plaque is there, it was obviously a significant address, but I didn't know that anecdote about the bowl, and it feels even more like poignant now. Yeah, I mean, kind of moving away from the sort of sad way that Noor's life ended. I've seen that you're acting as a consultant on a new sort of I suppose it's a drama series about Noor. We know what the BBC are like, or whoever it is that are making it. You probably can't say much, but what is that like, acting as a consultant on something that's focused on someone's life that you've already been sort of working so hard to share research on?
It's fabulous because I would love to see her her life brought to screen. It just reaches so many more people. So one of my earlier books called Victoria and Abdul, that was adapted for screen. So I have been through the process before. That was a film. It had Judi Dench and the star cast, and Stephen Frears as the director. So it was fabulous. And I was a consultant on that. So I'm quite used to now acting as a consultant for various things that come up because a book is very different. There is so much that comes into play when you dramatize it, because of course you invent dialogue, and then and then it's the detail of clothes that you've worn. In my book I may not go into every detail of the clothes, but when you're putting it, so there's every detail has to be got right. It's I remember for Victoria and Abdul, it was the costumes. It was the street scenes of Agra, so I was consultant, to make sure that there was accuracy in everything that was done, and of course historical accuracy as well. So yeah, and Noor is a story that's obviously very close to my heart because I was the one who applied for the blue plaque for her and campaigned for the memorial. So I've lived with her story and gone on her trail for a very long time now. I think it's now almost 20 years that she's been with me. So it's very special, and fingers crossed it all works out. But we know who the studio are. So they Frida Pinto from Slumdog Millionaire, she's executive producing it, so she will be playing Noor. So we know a few things that have been put out in the in the press, but we don't know which channel it'll go on and things like that. So
even so, I'm excited to see it because that just sounds fantastic. And I suppose just a final question, I guess. If you, like you said, you've been working on Noor's story for like 20 years now, so I feel like you must be so familiar with her, but obviously you've never had the chance to speak to her, unfortunately. So if you could be on a phone call with Noor, as our protagonist is in episode 6, what would you ask or tell her?
Can I do both? Can I ask and tell?
100%.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would ask her because there is one thing in her life that I could not solve. Before she left on her mission, she told her parents, she told her mother and her sister that she had met somebody and she was engaged. And who was this secret person that she met? And he obviously must have also died in the war, because nobody came after the war to say they had been engaged to Noor. And she just announced this, you know, threw it out there, and they were shocked and they were excited. But, you know, there is this mystery man, and I have not been able to track him. I don't know who he was. There is nothing more about him. So I'd want to know who he was. And what would I tell her? Oh, I'd tell her that, oh my goodness, Noor, your story has not been forgotten. So there's a plaque outside your house, and there is a memorial. And yeah, you inspire people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I want this to go on and on, but I feel like we've covered her life in a way that is really, really lovely, and I think it's going to be a wonderful resource for everybody who's kind of had their interest piqued by the work that we've been doing on her life. So thanks to both of you for all the time that you've given me today and the project. It's been so lovely to hear more about her, and thank you everybody for watching as well. I can't believe this is the last episode, but yeah, thank you all so much. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and yeah, keep finding out about these underrepresented histories, because they're clearly just, you know, why aren't they in the textbook? It's an absolute scam. So yeah, thank you everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Imogen.